Vikings, let's win this game.
Attention, Vikings fans. Something big is moving in Minnesota, and this time it is not just loose rumors. There is real momentum around a potential signing to fill a major gap on offense, trade discussions heating up with the draft approaching, and a contract decision that already says a lot about who remains part of the team's long-term plan. That alone would already be enough, but it is not stopping there. Now, where there is no negotiation, there is pure tension, because Kyler Murray has broken his silence. He dropped a message that is already sparking reactions everywhere, and it might mean more than it looks at first glance. Let's get into it. There is a movement building behind the scenes, and honestly, it hits directly for anyone who has followed this team for years. The departure of a player from the roster opened a clear hole on offense, and when that happens, the front office does not sit still. The conversation now revolves around a potential signing that blends opportunity with risk. This is not just any available player. This is a guy who has worn this jersey before, made noise here, and knows exactly what it means to play in that stadium with the crowd behind him. But there is also a major detail holding things back. Off the field, the situation is not fully resolved, and that slows everything down, and maybe even changes the timeline completely. Then the name surfaced, and it was impossible not to react. Stefon Diggs returning to Minnesota. Just hearing that brings a mix of nostalgia and hesitation, right? Because on the field, nobody forgets what he did. Strong numbers, clutch plays, real connection with the fan base. But time has passed. The situation is different now. He would not return as the main option. He would be more of a complementary piece, and that changes expectations right away. And that is where things get interesting. Playing alongside Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison could take pressure off him. Less double coverage, more space to operate. Let's be real for a second. This could work better than people expect, especially in big moments. At the same time, you cannot ignore age, wear and tear, and especially the unresolved legal situation. That matters, and it weighs heavily on any final decision, maybe more than anything else right now. But think about it. An offense with 3 reliable targets changes everything. It gives new life to the quarterback. It creates options in key moments. And there is another detail. Kevin O'Connell was not the head coach when Diggs left. This is basically a fresh start, with a completely different dynamic. So let me ask you, would you bring him back or leave that story in the past? I want your take, because this potential signing is not just about talent, it is about identity. And the next move could define the direction this team takes. But before we go further, quick favor, subscribe to the channel. It is free and helps grow this community a lot, and it keeps this conversation going with people who really care about this team. Let's keep going. There are decisions made behind closed doors that do not make noise at first, but when you really break them down, they say everything about the future of a team. And this is one of those. No trade, no new signing. This is about keeping a player who has already proven his value, even through the chaos of last season, and that context matters. The front office made the call, and it was not a hard one. It was the kind of move where you look at it and think, this was the right move. The name at the center of it all is Jordan Addison. The Vikings exercised the 5th-year option on his contract. In practical terms, that keeps him with the team for 2 more seasons. And this is not just paperwork. It is a clear statement of trust and also a quiet challenge. Because on the field, even with an unstable offense and quarterback issues, Addison delivered. He has never been about ego, never tried to outshine anyone. He just handled his business, ran his routes, and showed up when needed. And when Justin Jefferson was not on the field, he stepped up. That is not a small thing, especially in this system. Real talk. Players like that are rare, but not everything is smooth. Off the field, his situation is becoming a concern. This is not the first time issues have surfaced during the offseason. That raises red flags, and the team is definitely watching closely. It cannot be ignored. At the same time, the expected punishment this time should not be severe. Nothing like the previous suspension. So the decision to keep him still makes sense, at least for now. Now the pressure shifts. These next 2 years will define everything. Not just his career, but who he is as a person in this league, because talent has never been the issue. His production dropped last season, yes, but that cannot be viewed in isolation. The entire offense struggled. Passes were inconsistent. Rhythm never clicked. And even so, he still contributed. Now, with better structure and more stability at quarterback, expectations rise. A lot, and fast. He needs to break the 1,000-yard barrier. He needs to cut down on mistakes. And most importantly, he needs to stay out of trouble off the field. Because if he does that, there is no debate. That leads to a major contract. That locks him in long-term and solidifies his role. And here is the key part. This decision does not close any doors. It opens a final test. If it works, everyone wins. If it does not, everything changes. And that is exactly what makes this situation so important moving forward. Now hold on to this possibility, because this is not about a completed signing or confirmed trade. This is one of those scenarios that starts as a long shot, but when you really look at it, you can see a path, and that is where things get interesting. The draft is coming, and with it, surprises always happen. There is growing discussion about what could unfold, and we are not talking about just any prospect. We are talking about a player many consider one of the best in the entire class, and that changes expectations immediately. But then several factors come into play: positional value, physical evaluation, the decision not to participate in testing, and even medical concerns being mentioned behind the scenes. All of that can cause a player to fall further than expected, and we have seen this before. And that is when the name starts showing up on Minnesota's radar. Caleb Downs. If he somehow slips to pick number 18, everything changes, and fast. Let's be real. That would be an incredible opportunity. This is not just a good player. This is a safety who does everything. Coverage, run support, instincts, playmaking, the kind of player who can completely change a defense, not just add depth. And history shows this can happen. Elite safeties have slipped in drafts before. It would not be unprecedented, but let's be clear. It is still unlikely. Teams picking between 11 and 17 could easily take him before Minnesota even gets the chance. And then it is over, just like that. But there is another scenario. If he starts sliding, Minnesota could move up a few spots. A potential draft day trade is absolutely on the table. And that is where strategy kicks in. And that is where Brian Flores comes in. Imagine this guy in his defense. Versatile, smart, always around the ball. The perfect fit for an aggressive system. And honestly, this could completely change that secondary. Not just improve it, especially looking ahead. Key veterans are nearing the end. Someone has to step in, and soon. But there is another side. The physical questions still exist. He skipped testing. That concerns teams. And the talk about his knee, even without confirmation, could scare some franchises away. That is where the risk lives, but that is also where the opportunity is. Because when others hesitate, someone takes the chance. And if that team is the Vikings, everything could change. So keep an eye on this. Because on draft night, one unexpected decision can turn this from unlikely into reality. There was a moment this offseason that made a lot of people uneasy, and it was not about a play, a trade, or a signing. It was about money. It was about comparison and perception. A massive contract hit the league, and immediately the question came up, what about our top offensive player? Because when someone else gets paid more, doubts start creeping in. Could there be dissatisfaction? Could there be a demand for a new deal? Or worse, could this turn into a problem? That is where things can spiral quickly. But then a deeper analysis came out. And when you really look at the numbers, the story changes. The name at the center of it is Justin Jefferson. And honestly, the initial concern does not really hold up. Let's be clear. There is no reason to panic. When you factor in his full contract, including what remained from his previous deal, the gap between him and the highest paid players is not nearly as big as it seemed. In reality, he is still earning at the same level as the elite at his position. So that feeling of being left behind is not accurate, and that completely changes the tone, because no one wants their best player unhappy, especially someone who represents so much to the team. Jefferson is not just production. He is identity. He is the face of the offense. He is the energy of this team on the field. And let's be honest, losing that would be devastating. But the current situation does not point in that direction. In fact, everything suggests stability, at least for now. Of course, looking ahead, things could shift. New contracts will come. Numbers will rise. And eventually, he will want to reset the market again, like all elite players do. And that brings up another point. The Vikings offense could become one of the most expensive in the league. With Jefferson and Jordan Addison both heading toward major deals, plus other key positions needing investment, the financial puzzle gets complicated. But some things are non-negotiable. Paying Justin Jefferson is one of them. That is not a debate. That is reality. And right now, everything appears under control. No drama, no crisis, just a natural progression over time. And that alone is a huge relief for anyone following this team closely. Now we reach a point that is not about a signing or a trade. This is about leadership, mindset, and the future of the most important position on the field. And honestly, this is not simple. There is a new name stepping into the spotlight. A player with experience, talent, but also questions, and that combination always creates tension. And when that type of player enters a locker room, the impact goes beyond football. A recent post caught everyone's attention. It was not just the message, it was the tone, it was the attitude, it was the kind of statement that feels like a direct shot, whether intentional or not. And when you connect that with the current situation, everything escalates. The name at the center of this is Kyler Murray. Being completely direct, He has already made his presence felt, and that can either be a good thing or create tension, because on the field, his talent is undeniable. Accuracy, mobility, playmaking ability. He has been to the Pro Bowl. He has proven himself, but that has never been the concern. The concern has always been everything around it: commitment, consistency, leadership. And now he enters a situation where he is not alone. There is another name there, younger, high draft pick, seen as a long-term project, J.J. McCarthy. And that is where the real tension begins. This is not just a competition. This is a decision about the future, and the timeline matters. If Murray performs, he takes over, and that changes the entire plan. The investment made in McCarthy gets questioned, but if Murray struggles, the door opens, and that can shift everything inside the locker room, because players feel that. Energy changes, dynamics shift, and Murray's message only adds fuel to that fire. Now here's the interesting part. That pressure could push McCarthy to another level. It could force growth, or it could be the beginning of the end for him in Minnesota. It goes both ways, and there is no middle ground here. And from a broader perspective, the Vikings did not make this move without purpose. There is a clear intention to compete now, not wait years for development, but at the same time, you do not walk away from a major investment easily. So what we have here is an open situation. No clear answer, no guarantees, just competition. And honestly, these are the moments that define an entire franchise. And when you put all of this together, you can feel it. This is not a normal moment for the Vikings. There is a potential signing dividing opinions, a contract decision that shows trust but demands maturity, a draft scenario that could reshape the defense, a financial concern that turned out to be less serious than expected. Nothing here is small. Everything matters, and everything connects. And I will tell you this team is at a crossroads. Either things click now and they come back strong, or tough decisions start coming soon. And those decisions will not be easy. Now I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you make of all this? Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings, let's go.